Hello everyone, my name is Dustin with Mars Hill Technology, and today we're going to be doing week 3 of 4 of Mastering Your Smartphone. We're going to talk about who's got clearance when it comes to privacy settings on your phone. And every app on your phone asks for a key to something, your camera, your mic, or your location. And today we're going to check those badges and take back the ones that don't belong. We're going to be using this reference of badges to be actually settings on your independent apps on there. You can think of a badge just like a pilot or stewardess or staff member needs in an airport. You can't go into certain thresholds without having the certain badge, and that's exactly what we're going to be using today as a example when it comes to these settings. So what's the big idea? Well, permissions you can think as badges, just like we just talked about. You can hand them out and you can always take them back. If you didn't want an employee going in a certain part of the airport, you could just take back their badge or re-key their badge to where they can't go into a certain spot or use something. So that's the same thing we're going to talk about when it comes to your apps. So when an app asks you allow access to your camera, it's requesting that security badge to a part of your phone. The problem is that apps ask, and it's that we almost always tap allow without even giving it a thought, and we forget about it, that it has permissions. Well, today we're going to run that badge check. We want to make sure that certain apps have what they need and certain apps don't. If they don't need something, that we have those toggled off. So 2 weeks ago, we found where the privacy dashboard lives, and that was in your settings. Today, we're actually going to walk through it when it comes to your privacy, and we're going to talk about how most apps hold a few badges that we never intended. Could be locations that's set on for always on. We're going to be talking about that today, and then we're also going to be talking about taking a few badges back that almost. And the good thing about this is even when you take back some of these badges, they never break anything when it comes to your phone, and you can always reissue it on a tap. Typically, if you've turned off, like let's say something for photos and you're trying to take a photo of something in the future, it's going to remind you, the app will say, hey, I don't have permissions to take a photo. And you can always toggle it back on if you need it and toggle it back off whenever you don't need it. So today you're going to be that security desk. You're going to be looking at your apps and you're going to look at every app works for you and not the other way around. So you're going to decide who's cleared for what when it comes to your privacy on your apps today. Today's clearance check, when it comes to it, we have 6 little stops here at our security desk. We're going to be looking at the 4 badges, and that's your camera, microphone, location, and contacts. We're going to be looking at that one. We're going to be looking at the warning lights. That's a green and orange dot at the top of your screen on your smartphone, and what that means. We'll talk about that control room where all your apps are listed. We'll talk about the location levels while using versus always. These are different settings that we can do when it comes to the locations and what it has access to when it comes to your app. Here on step 5 here, we're going to ask the honest reason an app wants more than it needs. And it might need it for marketing purposes. It might be using it for some sort of configuration on their front, or how they can actually get more details or data when it comes to that person. So we're going to give you the honest reason an app might ask more than it actually needs. And sometimes the app just wants to get full control. That way it has what it needs to actually do what it needs to do. We're going to be talking about revoking with confidence. So if you don't need one of these settings or these privacy, let's say your phone, your photo app, you might not want locations shared on your photos because you just want to take a picture. You don't need to have a location saved on each of your photos. That way when you share your photo, you have a location tied to your image. So these are things that we're going to be looking at, and we can revoke these today. So no app gets hurt. That's the key for today. Every badge, you can just hand it right back to that app if you need it back in the future, so it's not going to hurt anything. So our first stop, and this is what the badge apps are going to ask for. There's 5 permissions we're going to cover for today. Almost everything's worth watching. Here's what each one actually unlocks. So you're going to see one setting, which is a camera. And that's going to be for taking photos and videos. It's needed by camera, video calls, scanner apps, almost everything that deals with some sort of physical object where you're going to be taking a picture of or a video of. You're going to have that camera app turned on. A lot of people do this. A lot of people use this for like social media. They're going to have it access their camera or whatever it might be. And what I do by default for myself for privacy is for iPhones, you can actually select the photos from your gallery. So I usually will just take the photos myself, and then I'll select the photos I do want to share with Facebook. So there's an option for that with camera, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Microphone. This is the one you need for, of course, calls, voice notes, recording, anything of that nature. If you're shooting a video, it's going to need a microphone to be able to have some sort of audio when it comes to it. So that's your microphone, whatever it needs to be. Your location. This is very important for maps and weather. That's the big one, but maybe not for your flashlight or a game. You don't really need to give your location for those to be able to work. Do you need your flashlight to know exactly where you are in the world whenever you use it? No, and hopefully you're using the built-in flashlight when it comes to your operating system instead of an app these days. But locations, we want to kind of look at that. Contacts. This is a big one. You don't want to share your contacts unless it's actually giving you something. A lot of social media is like, bring in your contacts so we can add you as your friend or whatever on this system. Well, they also get the numbers or maybe the email address for all those people. So the big one for contacts is, unless it's a contact app, you really should think about what you're using contacts for in the future. Your photos, this is the thing I talked to you about a little bit earlier about the camera feature, but you can choose select photos and only disclose a few photos to the actual app at one given time, so it doesn't see your whole library. That's a big part of the photos setting on there. Notifications. And nowadays every app wants to blow up your phone with a notification, bing 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 bing, or a little app notification on whatever. So it's very important that we go through there and we can turn off some of these notifications for some, not so sensitive, apps. Maybe you don't need to know that the new guitar, tuner app has an update. You don't need to know that kind of thing, and it ping you left or right. So you might want notifications on for important things like email, or maybe your phone calls that you missed, or your messages. So these are things that we're going to consider today when it comes to the badges and what they're going to ask for. So today we're going to try it out. We're going to do a little badge check and everything, and you can do this with me today if you're online. But we're going to tap an app, and we're going to ask, is the clearance reasonable for it? For maps right here, so we're going to choose maps here. So when we use our maps, whether it be Google Maps, Apple Maps, or we use a third-party app like Waze or whatever to navigate, we do want to have location set on, because if it doesn't know where we're located, it can't navigate us or show us in vicinity of a store or something that we might be getting. So it's very reasonable to give locations. We don't necessarily need to give it a microphone or a camera to be able to do its job if we're just needing the locations. But if you're trying to do a shortcut, maybe you're on the road and you like to talk to your Maps app and say, hey, I want you to navigate to whatever, that's something that you would toggle on the microphone for. The location is completely reasonable there. So your flashlight, do we need to have locations and contacts on? No, we definitely do not need to have locations and contacts on when it comes to your flashlight. We don't need to have the flashlight knowing exactly where we are or who we have in our contacts. That's a big red flag there. So a lot of times you need to revoke those if there's on today, because we don't need those two things shared with our flashlight. We just need it to produce a light to be able to see, like in a movie theater or at night, go into a car or something like that, or looking under the couch for something. That's when you'd use your flashlight. What about the game? Well, a game, it'll ask you, do you want your microphone or do you want to do the contacts and everything? And you should really question this. What are you getting out of this? If you're using a mobile game and it has some sort of like built-in microphone where you can talk to people, do you want people, to be able to talk to you? My big thing with a mobile game is I would turn my microphone off. That's just me. Another one is contacts. It's once you share your contacts and who you have on your phone, so it can share friend requests or whatever. But like I said, they have access to your friends or whoever you have in contacts, their phone numbers and emails. So be really careful about these two settings here. And it might even ask you your location for whatever reason. My big advice is, if you can get away with not having to click it on, that's the best way, because you can always go back and click it on when you need it. So when it's asking you for these defaults right off the bat, the best thing to do is just say nope to all of them, and then you can always add them as you need when you need that feature in whatever you're doing. So your camera. So here's some things that a camera might ask for you. Does the camera app need a camera? Yeah, you should toggle that one on, because if you don't have your camera privacy on where it can use your camera while using the camera app, defeats the purpose of the camera app, because you need to be able to take a picture. If you're going to be recording videos and everything, which most people will, and that's if you're doing videos, you're going to have a microphone, or you're going to have a lot of, with no sound. So we want to make sure our microphone is set off on, and it needs somewhere to save it. So you're going to have to toggle on photos. That's where it's going to try to save that actual picture or reference it. So these are very reasonable requests that a camera app might ask you. So these are all important here. Your weather app. Do we need the location to be able to use your weather app? Well, it depends. If you're traveling a lot, I would definitely toggle on location. My preference for weather apps is I like to just type in my actual zip code or city or wherever I'm doing, and then I save it. And that way I don't have to give it location for whatever it's doing. But it is very reasonable to have locations on with a tweak here. If it needs a location for your local forecasting, but while using, that's a big issue or big term here is while using. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. You would deny always. You don't want to always know your location because you don't need that. It needs to check once or twice a day for any kind of weather alerts when it comes to that. Your messenger. Well, messenger is a lot of things are going on with your messenger app. You might be using it for a camera. You might want to take a picture when you're using your messenger app to send to a friend. A microphone, you might want to send a voice memo to your friend during that. You could do your contacts. You got to have your contacts to be able to search for your friend's name up in there, or colleague or work, whatever, in the actual messages to find it. And the same thing with photos. You want to be able to bring something from your library and then send that to them. So these are always reasonable for your actual messenger app, your text messages. So you have to do that. But you can always deny things. You can always deny one of these things. If you don't want to have the context, you could type their number in, for it, or you could paste it in there. These are all things, but I would, for the simplicity of it, I would have at least these 4 on there if you don't want to have to go a roundabout way of doing that. So stop 2. We're going to talk about those dots at the top of your screen. So your phone's going to show a tiny colored dot at the top of the screen the moment something starts using, like your camera or mic, for example. It's built-in warning lights, and you can learn to read it today. So we're going to talk about that green dot. Your green dot at the top of your screen is for your camera. That tells you that your camera is active right now or was recently when it comes to it. And that could have been for maybe you're on a phone call, maybe you took a picture of something, anything of that nature. It's worth a second look anytime that you are not using your camera. And you'd be surprised. You'd be like, oh, I didn't know that I was using a camera at that point. So what about that orange dot at the top of your screen? Well, that's your microphone. So if you're on a phone call or doing something like that, and you see this a lot with if you're in your car and you're using Apple CarPlay or Android CarPlay or whatever theirs is, Android Auto, sorry. If you're using Android Auto in your car, you might see these little dots, and that just tells you that the microphone was recently used or the camera was used recently when you have your phone connected to it. So if you see a dot when you're not using your camera or mic, you can swipe down from the control center. This is a good little shortcut for you on the iPhone, or you can go to the notification shade on Android, and it names that app that and you can just turn that off if you don't want it. So it's a good little feature to see what the green dot and the orange dot do on your phone. So to stop 3, we're going to talk about this one. This is the control room. This is where every badge is in one place on your phone. So one screen lists every permission and which apps hold it. And this is where the whole badge check happens. So when you're on your iPhone, we talked about this a few weeks ago in our class, you're going to find your settings. And you can look for the cog on your phone or search for it on the search bar on your phone. You're going to look for settings and then privacy and security. This is where you can go through your apps and see what has permissions for your microphone or your location, things of that nature. And the Android's very similar. You're going to go to settings, privacy, permission manager, and this is where you're going to be looking at who can hear me. You're going to see what different apps can have access to some of these privacy settings. So be familiar with where the control room is on your actual device so you can go in there and kind of audit this. I recommend going at least once a year if you're a casual user on your phone. If you're using your phone very often, it's probably worth about quarterly to go through and just check. I always, by habit, I turn off every permission I can just so my privacy is respected as much as possible. It's very rare to get 100% of your privacy, but it's good to have what you need. You'd be surprised what's on there. So these few steps could save you a little bit of your privacy and what your app actually can see and everything. So the smart way to think about it today is go permission by permission, not app by app. You can go through your apps and do these, one at a time, but the best thing to go through is by permission on it. So you go to microphone, you see what's on there, you go ahead and switch it, and this is a really easy way to do. See what's using your actual phone, and you can change that all on the fly right there. So stop 4, and this is our big one here, location. While using is always enough. Make sure you choose while using. Almost all my apps on my phone are while using. So when the actual app is utilizing it, if I'm on Chick-fil-A or whatever food app and I'm doing a to-go order on that phone and I want my location shared, it's while using. That way it's not just watching me where I'm going all the time. Because if you turn it on always, it's going to always know where you are. The only one I have that for is actually Waze, and I have it tied to for appointments and meetings. It will locate where I need to go, and it'll say, hey, you have a next appointment and it's located here. You need to leave now or whatever, because it knows my location. I have it set on always, but that's about the only one that ever I have on my phone that actually gets always location on. Another one is for safety. I do that for my family. I like to know where find my on iPhone, and you can find your different items and your family members if you're sharing location. That's another one you'd have on for always. But almost 100% of the time, 99% of the time, you're going to do while using or never. Another one is never, and that's a good one to think about too. Does your flashlight app need to know your location? Never use it, not while using it. So, but we're going to talk about these 3 right here when we're doing it. Well, while using, it only uses it whenever you're on that app. So always, it'll be in the background. It'll always have it on, and then ask next time. Sometimes it'll allow you to ask next time, or you can choose not to right now, and then if you need it in the future, you can do it that way. So it's pretty important to think about these, what's actually getting your location. Choose while using. If you don't know what to do, choose while using. If it's something you don't know, or some app that you don't think needs to have your location, put never, because you can always give that security badge back to it in a future time. Switching an app from always to while using is a single here highest value privacy change most people can make. It's that simple. That's one app less out there in the world that has your data, and that's a key thing. People pay my company all the time to try to do privacy changes and try to get their information off. Well, these are the reasons they get that information. They sell it. That's how they make their money, especially those free apps. So be really cautious about that. Stop 5. This is why an app asks for more than it needs. So it's usually not sinister by design, but it's rarely for your benefit. And that's the honest truth when it comes to it. These are 3 honest reasons why. Advertising. I told you they're going to be using your information for marketing. They're going to get your location, contacts, and all this stuff to be able to cater to you more independently and sell that information to data brokers or whatever to make money, especially when it's a free app. These are just in case designs. Sometimes developers ask for something up front. That way they don't have to ask again in the future and inconvenience you. Because if you're not being able to use your app, you're going to delete it. You're going to delete the app. So they want to make it easy for you to do that. And here's a big one, like we talked about. Data is valuable. I've told you a few times about those free apps. And it's an honest thing. They make a lot of money by selling your information. So why does Google give you a free Gmail account? Well, they're probably selling all your information in marketing or being able to target you. So you got to kind of weigh it out. Does the free Gmail account that you have, is it giving you value? Well, yeah, but they're also making money on marketing towards you. They might send some sort of sponsored message to you or whatever, but that's data that you're giving up for it. So it's a good thing to think about why before you give access to certain things when it comes to these different apps and things you use in your daily life. So a fair test here: if you can't think of a reason the app needs it, just get rid of it. Say no, I don't need it. Deny it. You'll find out really fast if it's actually needed in that actual app. If you say no or never whenever it's saying can this have permission to whatever, and it won't load the app or do something, well, that's probably something that needs to be toggled on so you can use that app. These are things to think about, but it's never going to harm you to put no or never whenever you choose it if you have no idea. It's probably a safer bet, to tell you the truth. So here's top 6, and these are 4 badges worth pulling today. So take your microphone away from any game or shopping app. Man, Amazon loves you for telling what it is. The only reason they actually have these dots and things at $20 a pop or $30 or whatever is they're making money on you. Your data, you ordering things, making convenient, advertising. There's a reason why things are cheap. And they lose money on trying to make these is because they're using that microphone. So take it away from your shopping app and the games. You don't want that. They never need to hear you. If you're using a game and you want to use your mic, use a third-party app like Discord or TeamSpeak. I don't know if TeamSpeak's on iPhone, but those are things that allow you to use your mic and use it in coordination with the game. But you don't need the game to have it. Take your locations away from the flashlights, your calculator, simple games. All these things should be pre-built into your actual phone. Flashlights and calculators. So you don't need to have, download something unless you just want a special feature or, like a scientific calculator, for example. But you don't need location for any of that. You don't need any of that. So don't need that location. So deny it. So drop any app from always locations down to while using. These are really good. The only ones you need to make sure that it's always on always is tracking tools such as Find My. When an iPhone, when you have Find My iPhone or whatever, you need to always on, because if you don't have while using, that means you'd have to have the app actively being used to be able to find it. So you always want always. That way, if you lose your phone, it's always on and it can find for it. These are good things to think about, but this is a very choice time you do. Remember, I said 99% is while using. This is at 1%. There's only a few apps that actually need always on. Switch photo access to select photos. This is so important for social media and shopping apps. Just choose select photos, and you actually hand choose which apps, like actual photos, it has pictures of. Because if you do allow for all photos, it might be a little convenient for you to be able to look at all your photos, but the app has it as well, and it doesn't need that data. It doesn't need to know how many cars you own, how many friends you have, how many dogs you might have, because they're going to use that to target you or sell your data to someone else that you might have those things, and you might be interested in the next fluffy bed 4000 for your dog. So don't do that. We don't want to do that. If you're nervous you're going to break something, you won't. Like I said multiple times, it's just going to prompt you to turn it on whenever it needs it. It's going to ask you again to grant that when it comes to it. So a little reassurance today for actually tackling all these little changes on your phone. Things you can stop worrying about. Privacy talk gets real scary really fast. We're always living in fear when it comes to cybersecurity or privacy in today's age. But these are just common fears, and we're going to put those in place today. A permission prompt isn't accusations. Apps are required, and that's why they're going to pop up there to ask what the system really is working it actually needs. It's going to ask you if it needs to have a camera or whatever, and you're going to give it access to those if you wish. You don't have to. The green or orange dot during a call is completely normal. When you have both those going on, especially on a video call, you're going to have your camera and your actual microphones. Don't get scared about that you see those dots. Those are just reminders that something's using your voice or your audio and your actual camera. So these are things to kind of audit what is actually having those conditions. You don't have to deny everything. There's useful features that actually need real access to whatever it might be, but you should be the one choosing that if you want it to have your photo, your contacts, whatever it might be. Those are your choices, but once again, you should really think about it before you just give access blindly to whatever. You can't permanently break an app by toggling a permission. If an app breaks because you toggle a permission, you probably don't want that app, because there's going to be a lot more flaws when it comes to that app. It's not been tested well enough for it. So if something's breaking because you didn't give it your camera access, one, restart the app or restart your phone to see if that's an issue. If it's still doing it, I'd probably be looking at a different app or a different way to try to log into whatever you're trying to do. So it's not going to permanently break anything. So that's very, very rare. So privacy isn't about locking everything down. It's about knowing who holds that key when it comes to privacy and feeling fine about the ones you've handed out. So like I said, you're going to be giving out these permissions, but you want to be aware of what has these permissions, and you want to be checking these often when it comes to it. So on our third week, we always vote for the next lesson when it comes to our agenda for our Tech Talks. And today you can actually do that. So if you'd like to vote into our comments, you're more welcome to. I take in consideration for our class when it comes to a lot of this stuff, so we kind of go that way. But these are their next lessons that we're going to be focusing on, and we're going to be doing a poll there in our class, but you're always welcome to do this online. I like to hear your input. Even if we do one of these in the class, doesn't mean I wouldn't put one of these up as a bonus up on YouTube. So if you'd like to see one of these, you're more welcome to vote in the comments there, as always. But we're going to be voting on if our next lesson is going to be AI in plain English. We'll talk about different AI tools and how to use those. I'll actually be talking about Claude versus ChatGPT, just from recent issues when it comes to ChatGPT. I'll probably be switching that to Claude if we go that way, and Gemini. We'll talk about how to use those pretty effectively and easy. It's pretty easy these days to do that. We'll talk about either the cloud and the background, what the cloud is, or sorry, not background, the backups. We'll talk about what the cloud is and how to set up automated backups when it comes to different tasks on your computer and your phone. We might talk about the digital estate. Those are passwords on accounts, and organizing some of those features, especially for elderly individuals. If something's going to happen, you want to be able to actually access it. The worst feeling is you don't have access to something and someone passes away, or something happens and you need access to an account. So it's good to kind of think about that in the future. Banking and shopping safety, this is a big one these days, especially when we just came out talking about privacy and what has access to different things. There's a lot of cool little features you can do, like virtual cards these days, or where cards expire after a certain amount of time, that kind of help you with your banking and help you with peace of mind when it comes to charging something on your credit card. And also phishing attempts and things of that nature, how to protect yourself online. So that's a big one. So we'll be voting on that today or tomorrow in class, but you're more welcome to put that in the comment as well. So before next Tuesday, in our fourth lesson there in our class here, is we're going to run one badge check. So just go in there and do one of these little checks here. You don't have to do all of them today or whatever, just do one, and that way you can start working on it. So you can go to open your privacy and security on your iPhone or permissions manager on that Android, and just look around, open locations and see what apps and features have always on, and switch those over to while using the app. Maybe pull your microphone access from one game or shopping app. Or just watch for the green and orange dots this week on your phone and just take note of those. These are really good things. Small steps is a big part of it when it comes to your phone, your smartphone. So what are we going to do next Tuesday? We're going to talk about the autopilot and instruments. We'll talk about accessibilities and automation, making your phone easier to see, hear, and use hands-free. Talk about a couple tips when it comes to those different features on it. These are some of the features you probably should set up when you get your phone, but the main thing is getting all those other three things we talked about, where everything is, where the settings were. We talked about the storage, and we talked about the apps, but these are things to make it a little easier. Maybe you need a little bit of, the apps need to be a little larger to be able to read it, or you might want to have, maybe your hearing's bad and you have a hearing aid and you might want to connect that to it. So these are things to think about when it comes to the autopilot and instruments on your phone that you can use. There's a lot when it comes to this. So once again, if you ever need help with computers or anything of that nature, we do full-fledged computer help when it comes to it. We do bundles where we include privacy. We talk about browser hardening when it comes to privacy, VPNs, and password managers to help your privacy online. Love to help you on that if you need it. We also do smartphone assistance, so if you need a one-on-one there, we can do video calls. So if you're on YouTube, we can do video calls and things of that nature, or over the phone, and help you in regard to that. But we're always able to help if you're in Western North Carolina. So if you're in Western North Carolina, we'd love to help you with your business or your personal needs. So give us a call, and we'll be happy to help you there. You can always go to our website, marshilltechnology.com. Check us out there as well. So here's one more thing before we end the class today. You're 3 badges smarter than you were when it came to an hour ago when we're talking about it. So you can now find in the control room, you can read the dots when it comes to those warning dots at the top of your screen, and you can pull the permissions from a badge, any app that didn't deserve it when it comes to those permission standards. And that's real control when it comes to your actual phone and who has that control of individual apps. And that's the whole point of our series. That's the whole reason we're doing this smartphone thing, is to get you a little more secure and a little more familiar with your actual smartphone. So how do you find that again? You go to privacy and security, you look at, or permission manager if you're on Android, and that's how you find those settings when it comes to the control room we reference. How do you read it? Well, those green means your camera. The green means your camera. Your orange is your mic when it comes to those dots at the top of your screen. And how do you control it? You're going to grant what's needed and deny what is not needed when it comes to those apps. So it's a good thing to have, and it makes you feel a little more powerful and everything. So next week, we're going to land that plane. We're going to make your phone easier to use, hands free, easy, eyes easy, plus a look back on all those 4 leaks. So we'll see you next Tuesday. Like and subscribe to our channel, and we appreciate you joining. Thanks.